few weeks ago I tested the Suzuki Celerio, and whilst it was decent, it wasn't exactly adventurous in the style department. This, however, may tick that box. Say hello to the new Kia Picanto GT-Line. It may look racy, but is it all show and no go? The standard Picanto is a pretty handsome car if you ask me, but in GT line form it offers a more pumped up, aggressive look. Yes, the car may be small, but just take a look at the swollen body kit and the mock rear diffuser, and it's clear to see that this car isn't here to muck about. It also features bigger alloys, 16-inch to be precise, as well as a double exhaust pipe. And yes, it looks rather mean. I like it. Step inside and you'll find faux leather seats with splashes of red on them. Plus you also get a smattering of red stitching as well as sports pedals, and it does feel rather sporty in here. Now, as you would predict from a car of this price point, there are plenty of hard black scratchy plastics, but it would be very difficult to criticise a car of this budget for having such a cheap feel, because after all it's a cheap car. Now, this model doesn't have a touchscreen, sadly. If you want a touchscreen, you would have to have the 3 model, the GT Line S or the X Line. But the dashboard is quite straightforward, it's quite minimal, which means that you get good ease of use. And although it does feel cheap, it does feel pretty well made. All the dials feel pretty good, in all honesty. The Kia Picanto is available in 6 trim levels: 1, 2, 3, GT Line, GT Line S, and the new SUV inspired X Line. The base model 1 starts from £9,495 and offers the basics such as front electric windows, radio, remote central lock-in, hill start, and 6 airbags. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the GT Line S, which is priced from £13,995 and offers goodies such as climate control, 7-inch touchscreen with navigation, wireless phone charger, rear parking sensors, electric sunroof, autonomous emergency braking, heated front seats, and a heated steering wheel, to name a few. But what about the standard GT Line? Well, it's priced from £11,950 and offers 16-inch alloys, sporty styling, LED rear lights, privacy glass, Bluetooth, aircon, and front and rear electric windows. For a more detailed look at the full Picanto lineup, then be sure to check out the written review. I'll put a link to it in the video description below. Now, like with other city cars, the Picanto isn't exactly blessed with space. However, space in the front is pretty good, but I will say that getting a good driving position was a little bit difficult for myself. Predictably, for a car of this price point, the steering wheel adjusts only for rake and not for reach, but that's fine, I expected that. However, the driver's seat hasn't got height adjustment, so it did mean getting comfortable took a little bit longer, and it was a tiny bit of a faff, but nevertheless I have been able to get a decent driving position. But what about cubby holes? Well, you've got 2 cup holders down here. You've also got a space behind the cup holders where you can put a smartphone or a few smaller items. Thankfully, the door bins are bigger than the ones offered in the Suzuki Celerio, so I can actually fit a bottle in there, which is quite nice. You've also got this little cubby hole here where again you can put some smaller items, and the glove box is of a decent size as well. But what is space like in the back? Now, it's a small car, therefore space in the back is always going to be limited for taller people like myself, and the Picanto is no different. I can't even get in. Right, now, as always, the driver's seat has been altered for myself. I'm 6'2", so needless to say, I'm a tall guy, and as a result, I've got very little legroom. Okay, let's be fair. If I were sat behind a shorter driver, I would of course have more room. So it's a bit of an extreme example. But what about headroom? Okay, that's not too bad. If I were to sit all the way back, which, let's face it, no one really does that, my head is rubbing on the roof lining. But if a bit more natural, a bit more limber, a bit more relaxed, then yeah, the headroom isn't too bad. But I did find I had more rear headroom in the Suzuki Celerio and also the Ford Car Plus as well. Now you can theoretically seat 3 people on the back of a Picanto, but it's going to be tight. Even if you had 3 children, I think you'd struggle. So you're probably best saving for rear for 2 people rather than 3. Open up the boot and you'll find a generous amount of room for a car of this size because it offers 255 litres, making it the biggest in class. So it should be more than enough to handle your daily life. However, if you do need more space, you can of course fold down the 60/40 rear seats to give you an improved capacity of 1010 litres. But it's worth mentioning there is quite a high lip, so if you've got heavy bags of shopping or if you're trying to get a pram in there or a pushchair, it may be a little bit inconvenient. But on the whole, the boot offers a decent size. You'd be forgiven for looking at this sporty car, thinking that there's an engine underneath the bonnet that packs a decent punch. Well, I'm afraid you're wrong. What I actually have underneath the bonnet is a 1 litre, 3-cylinder, naturally aspirated petrol engine, which offers, wait for this, 66 brake horsepower. Yeah. You heard me right, just 66 brake horsepower, which is hardly sporty in any shape or form. Now, okay, you can have a more powerful 1.25 litre, 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated petrol engine, and that offers 83 brake horsepower. So it's not really, it's not really much different in all honesty. Now, you look at this car and you think it's going to be a rival for cars such as the Volkswagen Up GTI or the Renault Twingo GT, but I'm afraid it's not quite there. It's worth mentioning that later this year, Kia will be able to offer you a 1 litre turbocharged petrol, which offers 99 brake horsepower, which still isn't quite as powerful as the Up GTI or the Twingo GT, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Now let's get back to the topic of this engine. As well as its measly 66 brake horsepower, it offers 130 Newton meters in torque, or 96 pound-feet if you prefer that in old money. Power is fed to the front wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox. You can have a 4-speed auto if you prefer, but you would need to have the 1.25 litre petrol engine in a different trim level, so you wouldn't be able to have the GT-Line or the GT-Line S in an automatic gearbox, but that's fine by me. Now, speaking of the manual gearbox, it's got a nice change to it, it's got a rather nice action, and it does make it rather pleasant. Okay, so let's tackle the elephant in the room, shall we? It's a sporty car, well, sporty-ish kind of car. So how fast does it get to 60 miles per hour? Well, I think how fast is probably the wrong choice of words, because it definitely isn't fast. It's 13.8 seconds. Yeah. But on the plus side, the top speed is triple figures. It's 100 miles per hour. So it is triple figures, just. So then, I'm afraid this Picanto with this engine is a case of all show and no go. However, it's not all bad. Now, we all know that this car hasn't got a lot of power. However, there is one advantage to that. Because it hasn't got a lot of power, it means you can use all of it all of the time, and you can really throw this little scamp into corners, and it is pretty good fun. Right, I've got a bit of a bend coming up. Let's see what this car can do. Right, on the brakes, which are pretty sharp by the way, they are pretty good. Not a lot of body roll, drop it into third. The steering has got a nice weight to it, it's nice and responsive. And because it's got a short wheelbase and it's light, it's as nimble as a housefly. You really can bomb it round some of the corners. But what's the car like when you've had enough of thrashing it around? Now, the great thing about a car like this, when you don't want to throw it about in corners, when you're just driving around town, the steering is nice and light. Yes, the suspension is firm, but it's by no means uncomfortable. Although it's worth mentioning that sometimes the ride is a little bit jiggly on poor surfaces, so this road isn't particularly good, and the ride is a little bit busy and a little bit jiggly, and the car will skip over imperfections in the road, but it's not too bad. The car still feels pretty refined. And speaking of refinement, let's talk about that, shall we? Now, this car has got bigger alloys, so it's got 16-inch alloys, and there's a fair amount of tyre noise. Is it intrusive? No. Is it noticeable? Yes. So although it's there, it's kind of a background noise rather than an actual irritation or a distraction. On the plus side, the wind noise isn't too bad, and the engine is pretty docile when you're cruising, and even when you rev it, it's not too vocal and it's not too raucous, which is pretty good in terms of refinement. In regards to safety, the standard Picanto has a Euro NCAP rating of 3 stars, but that can be boosted up to 4 stars thanks to the Advanced Driving Assistance Pack, which offers features such as autonomous emergency braking. Right, so let's talk fuel economy. Now that's one advantage of having a small car and a small engine. It means that the car is bound to be frugal, and the Picanto is no different, but it's not quite as frugal as you may expect, which I will explain very shortly. So this engine should offer you, on a combined run, 64.2 mpg, which is pretty good. I'm sure we can all agree. Now in my experience, I've been getting mid-40s, which isn't too bad, but it's not quite as much as what I was able to get out of the Ford Car Plus and the Suzuki Celerio. But what about CO2? Well, this engine emits 101 grams per kilometre, which means that for the first year of VED, you'll be paying £140, and then you'll be paying £140 each year afterwards. But what about those of you who are looking to get the 1.25 litre petrol? Well, on a combined run, that offers 61.4 miles to the gallon, so not a great deal less than the less powerful engine, and that has CO2 emissions of 106 grams per kilometre, which means that you pay exactly the same as you would for 1 litre petrol when it comes to VED. I like what Kia has done with the Picanto GT-Line. It's fun to drive and it looks great as well. But personally, I wouldn't recommend this engine. If you want more performance in, definitely wait for the 1 litre turbocharged petrol. But if you're not too bothered about the sporty styling, then why not pay a little bit more and get the free model, which offers more kit. But either way, the Picanto is an accomplished city car. It offers a big size boot for its size, it offers good value as well, and it's stylish. So I think Kia is onto a winner here. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and please subscribe for more car obsession.